pandemic, keep waiting for the president to wake up, grow up, be responsible, and he just can't do it. And instead of working through the weekend, he was rage tweeting. Instead of working last night, he was rage tweeting. And this is one of the things that he was rage tweeting against. Again, the truth. He rage tweets against the truth. Let's take a look.
There's mourning in America. Today, more than 60,000 Americans have died from a deadly virus Donald Trump ignored. With the economy in shambles, more than 26 million Americans are out of work, the worst economy in decades. Trump bailed out Wall Street, but not Main Street. This afternoon, millions of Americans will apply for unemployment, and with their savings run out, many are giving up hope. Millions worry that a loved one won't survive COVID-19. There's mourning in America, and under the leadership of Donald Trump, our country is weaker and sicker and poorer. And now, Americans are asking, if we have another 4 years like this, will there even be an America?
Paid for by the Lincoln Project, which is responsible for the content of this advertising.
You know, David Ignatius, for those of us who are old enough to remember the original Morning in America ad in 1984, a completely different time, but I think what's so chilling about that ad, and all of these type ads that come out, that by the time they drop the ad, the numbers are old. They mentioned 60,000 people dead, and an ad just dropped. We're going to be up to 70,000 dead in the next day or so. You put out, I remember people putting out ads talking about 3,000 people dead. Within a week, it seemed like it had doubled. And we're hearing from the government that this is going to exponentially get worse, that by June the 1st, the number of deaths per day is actually going to double. And even against that backdrop, even against all of the lies and the false assurances the president has given senior citizens, have given the elderly, have given the physically impaired, have given the rest of us who have family members who have underlying conditions, even with all those lies and false assurances, he's still at it, saying don't trust this CDC draft that was made with the help of FEMA. Basically, all the people on my task force in my government, don't trust that. And he's trying to push people back out to open up their businesses before they meet not my guidelines, not your guidelines, not Mika's guidelines, not Nancy Pelosi's guidelines, not Bernie Sanders' guidelines, not like the American Marxist League's guidelines, Donald Trump's guidelines, his own White House guidelines. He's not even following his own guidelines. And it's gotten so frightening that even a lot of his close allies are now condemning people that are going to rallies with guns and trying to intimidate legislators. This is a president who isolates himself more, not only from reality, but from a lot of supporters, David.
Joe, that line, it's morning in America with the somber music, as we think back on this horrifying month of April that we've just lived through as a country, is really painful for all of us. We want to be looking forward. We want to have some sense of how we're all going to come out of this. We look to the president for that kind of leadership. On the numbers, he doesn't know what the numbers are going to be. These are simulations and models. It's less that bothers me, that the numbers change, that happens. It's that what the country desperately needs is leadership to mobilize the resources of government that are there. And on the key issues of testing, tracing, even moving toward therapies, that leadership still seems to be lacking. I had a chance this week to talk with the CEO of Ford Motor Company, who's trying as hard as he can to keep his business going, keep his workers safe and employed. And what amazed me, Joe, was that he just said, we're having to do this all by ourselves. We made a 70-page booklet about how to reopen production as soon as we can, and we've got all the best practices. I said, so are you getting guidance from above? What agency do you talk to? Well, we don't talk to any agency. There's nobody really there. We're sharing with other companies. So we're a dispersed, disorganized country craving leadership and not getting it. Again, we're going to have Morning in America as our theme for some months now, and I just worry that we're going to begin to really tear the threads of the country apart in this period because people are frightened. They want government. They want to blame somebody for their difficulty. So it's a terrible period. The one thing we say is we know it will change at some point and get better.
Well, let us hope and pray. But Mika, without Washington, without the president running this crisis, he said he was a war president. This was a war. It's like he's putting 50 militias out there, state militias, and saying, you decide how you're going to fight World War II. Yeah. You decide, you 50 governors decide how you're going to land on Omaha Beach and scale the cliffs, liberate Normandy, and liberate the rest of Europe. You figure it out on your own. And in this case, where every state's on their own, every company like Ford are on their own, you don't have a government official, you don't have a government agency talking about best practices when Ford calls up and say, well, you know, it's interesting you're asking that question. We have actually a manufacturer out in Nevada that did this. Also, your business might be more like the one in Washington State, in Seattle. They did these practices. You may want to give them a call. Here's the booklet that they sent out. We'll send you a PDF. You can look it over and talk to your executives. Or, hey, here's what they're doing in Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, without that, it is literally every man for himself, every woman for himself, every governor for themselves. And this is instead just a president who's been lying to the American people, who's been telling the American people from the start that this was just one person from China, it was going to go away. This was just 11 people, soon it's going to be down to 0. This was just 15 people, soon it's going to be down to 5 and probably 0. That this is going to go away magically in April.
All night long.
It's going to go away like magic. This is a guy that said, hey, you know what? Try hydroxychloroquine or whatever it is. Kept rambling on and on and on about that until his own government agencies had to say, don't take that. It causes heart damage.
And then he
Consult
moved to
your doctor.
disinfectants.
And so then, yes, the next day he moved to disinfectants. He moved to putting lights inside of people. Then the government had to say, don't do that. This will cause danger. The same week, Mika, he was saying, I don't think this is going to come back in the fall. This may not even come back in the fall. It's, of course, to the scientists and the doctors, to the nurses, that was the same thing as the president saying it was going to magically go away in April. And now he's doubting the CDC. Now he's doubting FEMA. Now he's doubting drafts of reports. Well, we can look at the University of Washington report that's just in the past 3 weeks has doubled the number, the estimate for the number of Americans who are going to die from this, from like 60,000 to 135,000. And this is a president whose false assurances are hazardous to your health, especially if you're a senior, especially if you're a family member who has loved ones that have underlying conditions. Please be careful. Please take care of yourself. The president is detached.